Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Dean's family, thank you for being here today. Your presence means so much. It's a true reflection of the love and friendship Dean shared with all of us. Today isn't about saying goodbye. It's about celebrating a life well lived. A life full of laughter, stories, and moments that made us smile. Dean had a way of making people feel welcome. And looking around this room, I think he'd be thrilled to see us all together, sharing memories and maybe even a few laughs. So let's take this time to honor Dean in the way he would have wanted, with warmth, with gratitude, and with joy for the time that we had with him. At this time, I will invite Dean's 3 children, Tara Lynn, Austin, and Tyson, to come and pay tribute to their dad.
Well, first, thank you all for being here today to celebrate my dad and to support us. My brothers and I really appreciate it, and we also wanted to thank Chad for making this process so straightforward for us. And we wanted to thank Craig, Des, Kayla, Scott, and Jill and their family for the support at the hospital, for Uncle Dale and Darren being there at our side with Dad at his last days. There are a few moments that stand out to me and my brothers when we think of Dad. Lots of them are from our childhood that you will found us at a lake or at a campground. We know we can give credit to our dad for our adventurous spirit, and at least 2 of us have his nose. He also instilled in us a desire to drive fast and appreciate a nice ride when we saw one, or rode in one, or on one. Which is why today we decided to honor him in this, my brothers are going to make fun of me for saying this wrong, but the Suzuki Gixxer exhaust. He always encouraged us to water ski and wakeboard, to get lots of air on the tubes in the back of a boat. He wanted us to dirt bike with him and with each other and go quadding, jump off the high cliffs. And he'd help us make jumps for our pedal bikes and roller skates. And he'd also like to see us go fast behind a snowmobile or a truck on the hood of a car. One time that I felt particularly close to him was the day after my first softball practice in middle school. After he put me to bed, he came back with a ball and a glove, and he talked me through some techniques there in my room, just by the light of the hallway. I felt the excitement he had for me, and that he was looking forward to coming to my games. Yeah, it was the time I really felt closely connected. Another time, and he brought this up so often, I know he thought of it too, was when I went dirt biking with him in Kukanusa, and I hadn't for so many years. And he went so slow in front of me, and I bugged him about that for a long time. And he just wanted to make sure I was driving safe. But whenever he told the story after, he said, "I kept looking back and you're on my tail." And I said, "Well, why didn't you go faster?" I also knew he was proud of me, even if it wasn't always said in so many words. I remember when I came home from living abroad, and I think he was a little surprised that his little girl came back from living somewhere else and was also engaged. I don't think he felt old enough for that. But we went to buy a hot tub together, and he watched as I to ask questions to the salesperson, and him being such an amazing salesperson himself, I watched that he watched me with pride, and that was really cool. When we left, he said to me, "I guess you're like an actual real adult now, aren't you? I didn't notice that happened." But I felt really seen in that moment, and I felt the pride behind him saying that. Though there were times of distance, there were things that made me instantly pick up my phone to call my dad. I think it's going to take a couple of years for that gut instinct to fade. Every time I had a question about a vehicle, especially about buying or selling one, he was the first one my husband and I would call. Even if we were in the car test driving it, we would call him to ask a question. If I wanted to know something about my phone or get a new one, or wondered about my plan, because yes, he still helped me with my phone plan. I think it benefited us both. He was the one to call. And whenever there was something new going on with Star Wars, we could talk at length about Star Wars, past and present, and what could happen in the future. I actually gave him my Disney login so we could talk about it. So those moments, I'll treasure and I'll remember forever. Anytime there's something new Star Wars, I'm going to wonder what his opinion would have been, and I'll feel close to him. Over the last year, after he told me about his cancer diagnosis, the phone calls became more regular. I told him to call me whenever, and then I would always pick up, because he did that for me. If I needed something, I knew he dropped things so that he could help me when I was ready to do that back. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I was there for him and that we talked, because we became a little more vulnerable with each other than we probably ever had. And we made more effort to see one another. We got to do a very cool VR experience with my son, and watching him and hearing him, I suppose, just comment on every little cool thing was really fun. And this last year we got to go to West End together too, and I'm really glad that my kids had those moments with their Papa D. It was a really lovely way to spend the last little bit we had together.
Guys, mine's not as lengthy for sure, but I just wanted to make sure to take some time and just thank some really special people that were there for us. Right up to those last breaths with my dad, Scott, Jill, Calderwood here, your guys' whole family, what a rock you guys were for us. I honestly don't know what I would have done without you guys there. I know we all feel the same. Uncle Dale, again with us till the very end. Just so thankful that you guys were there, just for the support. Good buddy Chris McCready, just being there with us and being able to bring some stories to the hospital and getting some laughs out in those really difficult times. That meant a lot. So thank you guys all, and thank you guys all for being here. This is amazing to see all your guys' faces here. Just one quick memory I had of Dad, very recent. He was 55 years old, and I remember we'd go out biking quite a bit out near our house. I remember we got on the quad, and we still couldn't get him on the quad. He had to be on the 450 dirt bike at all times. But I remember trying a new hill with him, and it's a pretty decent hill climb, so I went up the hill first, and I said, no way. He was on my tail, so I threw the bike down, and I went to go running over the top of the hill to wave him down and say, Pops, please don't come up here. You're not going to make it. And by the time I got over the edge, he had popped over the top of the hill. Yeah, you were an animal, boss. We had our falling outs. He had a pretty hard head, but it never kept us from getting back and being close at all times. The last message that he sent me, bear with me guys, I didn't know if I was going to share this, but Father, good morning. Happy birthday, my son. I'm thinking about you today, and I hope your day goes great. I'm proud of you, and I love you. And he didn't say that much, but we all knew it. And it means a lot that he got to share that with me. Love you, Pops. Full throttle, all the way through life, and in the end as well. Thanks again, guys.
At this time, I'm going to invite Scott Calderwood to come and pay tribute to Dean. Scott and Dean have been lifelong friends to the point that they are like brothers. And I'm sure that Scott will be able to share an interesting perspective of Dean that many of us have not been privy to.
You guys, your dad had a hard head, but a much bigger heart. Thank you all for being here today. I'm deeply honored that Dean's family asked me to share his eulogy and some memories of the man who meant so much to all of us. Dean has been one of my closest friends for most of my life, and it is a privilege to stand here and speak about him today. Dean Fincaryk was born on March 26, 1970 in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. He passed away in Calgary, Alberta on Wednesday, November 19, 2025, surrounded by his children, their spouses, his brother, and several loved ones who gathered to hold him with deep love and care. Even those who could not be in the room were deeply held in his heart. Dean spent his early years just outside of Northford, Alberta, and later lived in Lethbridge before moving to Airdrie in the early 2000s, a community he would call home for the rest of his life. Dean lived his life to the fullest. He had a love for life that was unmistakable, and he carried a presence that filled every room he entered. He was fearless, full of energy, and always a tremendous amount of fun. Adventure was part of who he was. He loved sports cars, motorbikes, quads, sledding, scuba diving, water sports, sea-doos, and dirt bikes. He never stopped moving and never stopped seeing the next thrill that made him feel alive. He also loved escaping the winter and spending time in the sun, especially in Mexico, the Dominican Republic, and Costa Rica. For over 20 years, Dean worked in the RV industry as a sales representative. He was deeply successful at what he did, and he took pride in helping people find the right fit for their travels and adventures. He also spent many years flipping cars and had a rare ability to find value in every vehicle he touched. He had the golden touch and could always turn something into a win. Dean was fiercely loyal and protective. His love language was taking care of and providing for the people he loved. He was a devoted father, a proud grandfather, and a constant support for family and friends. You always knew where you stood with Dean, and you always knew he would show up for you. His loyalty was strong, and his protective nature ran deep. Dean is survived by his children, Carolyn McCarthy with her husband Craig, Tyson with his wife Desiree, and Austin with his wife Kayla. He was a proud grandfather to 6 grandchildren whom he adored and loved to spoil. Carolyn and Craig's children are Kelvin, Sam, and Fletcher. Tyson and Desiree's children are Macklin and Riley. Austin and Kayla's daughter is Carson. Dean is also survived by his brother Dale and by his nephew Darren. He was predeceased by his parents, Leonard and Marianne, who both passed away November 17, 1989. Today I want to share what Dean meant to me and to my family and to everyone who loved him. I want to tell his story in a way that reflects who he really was, the good and the hard, because both sides are what made him who he is. Dean and I have been a part of each other's lives since the 1970s. Dean and I met as little kids at Sunday school at First United Church. It was Dean, his older brother Dale, and me. We became friends right away and very quickly started spending more and more time together. Dean spent countless weekends at my place in Lethbridge, and I was always welcomed out at their acreage, just outside of Nobleford, about 15 minutes from Lethbridge. His parents became like second parents to me. When we were young, we rode our BMX bikes all over Lethbridge. Those bikes were our freedom. We would ride across town, through the coulees, and everywhere in between. As we got a bit older, time at the acreage often meant riding motorbikes or sledding in the winter. If we wanted to go out on the machines, Dean and Dale would often make me be the one to go and ask the parents, because they figured I had a better chance of getting a yes. Some of the most significant memories from our early years into our late teens were at church camps. Family camp at Sylvan Lake, family team camps at Old Valley Church Camp in Canmore, and the senior high and family camp at Moose Lake Gospel Camp. Those camps gave us a lot of shared experiences, adventures, and late night talks that helped form the foundation of our faith and friendship. As we moved into our teen years, life started to change quickly. When we entered our teens, our youth group at First United Church had become a tight circle of about 15 friends. We were not a typical youth group. We were probably problematic and troublesome for a lot of people in the church, but we were incredibly close and we had a lot of fun. When we were old enough to start skiing on our own, that became a huge part of our lives. Our winters were spent skiing at Fernie and Westcastle. We would drive out early Saturday morning, ski hard all day, drive home that night, and sometimes turn around and do it again on Sunday. It was about a 2.5 hour drive each way, but that never slowed us down. We always tried to be the first ones up the lift and the last ones off. We absolutely loved it. Around 16, everything shifted to cars and then sport bikes. We went from beaters to sports cars. Dean had a 1970 and a half Camaro with 327 and nitrous. I had a 1975 Firebird. Dale rebuilt an old Chevy truck into a beautiful burgundy classic. Later on, we all had sport bikes as well. Nights in Lethbridge were spent cruising, racing, chasing girls, and parking with groups of friends. Back in the 80s, that was the thing to do. You would start driving around 7 or 8 at night, find a place to park on the strip, and before long, friends would start pulling in behind you and more cars would join. Before you knew it, you had a line of cars just hanging out with friends and talking. Dean was fearless. He would walk up to anyone, talk to anyone, and had absolutely no fear of approaching any girl. One night we saw a group of girls walking along the road, and before I knew it, he had offered them all a ride. We ended up with 5 or 6 girls crammed into a tiny Firebird. Back then, we treated laws and rules like they were optional. We did a lot of crazy things that would probably get us jailed today. When Dean came to my house, my parents often let us take their 1973 canary yellow Toyota Corolla. We would drive around the corner, switch seats, and I would drive the rest of the night. I was 14. One day, Dean wanted to do a burnout in his Camaro in front of Bonanza, right next to Mary McGrath Drive. He asked if there were any cops around, and I said no, without really looking. He did a huge burnout, and as he did, I looked over and saw a police car just rolling right beside us. That did not end well. He just let me live that down. There were so many moments like that. We once borrowed his mom, Marianne's big car. It was a big red boat. And while she was at work at Sears. And we took it for a wild ride. And we brought it back only to have her confront us later because the trunk contents that hadn't not moved in years were now everywhere. And of course, we denied everything. When I was 17 or 18, I had my wisdom teeth removed in Lethbridge. The next day, Dean and I went to Sherwood Park to visit my sister and her family. And while we were there, it was time to have my stitches taken out. We were at West Edmonton Mall on the weekend and came across a dental clinic where only the receptionist was working. And she happened to be a cute girl. Dean and I started talking to her, and before long, I was sitting in the dental chair in the back with Dean standing over me using the tools from the tray to drink my stuff. I'm sure that poor girl would have been in a lot of trouble if anyone would have found out she let us do that. But that was Dean. He had the gift of gab, and he could talk his way into or out of almost anything. Around the same time, in our later teens, Dean and Dale's parents passed away unexpectedly. It was devastating. Dean was 19 years old, and suddenly losing both parents had a huge impact on him and Dale. They were already very close to my family, but after that, they spent even more time with us. They had an open invitation to our family events, Christmas, special occasions, and anything else that was happening. At that time, I did not think any of us fully understood how deeply that loss affected Dean. Looking back, I can see that he never really dealt or processed with the grief. It shaped his huge heart, his fierce loyalty, but it also shaped some of his temper and intensity. That loss became a part of who he was, even if he rarely talked about it. In 1998, Jill and I were married, and I moved from Lethbridge to Calgary. Dean and Karen were still living in Lethbridge, but even with the distance, our friendship did not change. We always found our way back to each other. In the early 2000s, Dean and his family decided to move to Airdrie, and having them close again meant a lot to both of us. Around this time, Jill and I started a small telecom resale business with our friend Craig Lundy. We were building something from the ground up, figuring things out as we went, and we brought Dean in to work with us. Dean was a natural when it came to connecting with people. Face to face, he was in his element. His humor, charm, and confidence made him incredibly effective. What became clear very quickly was that cold calling was not something he enjoyed or thrived in. And after a while, it was obvious that the role was not the best fit for him. After he moved from our company, Dean spent some time working with our friend Cam Puller in construction. A couple of years later, he found his true niche, which he entered the RV industry. He excelled immediately and would remain in the RV sales for the rest of his career. Dean's passion for RV sales was unmistakable. He genuinely loved it. He loved the work, the people, the energy, and the challenge of it. It was more than a job to him. It's where his personality, his confidence, his natural gift for connecting with people all came alive. Those years in Airdrie were full of transition for both of us. Careers were developing, families were growing, and life was changing quickly. But our friendship stayed as steady as it had always been. In the summer of 2002, Dean and Karen and their kids, Jill and I with Tannen and McKenna, our good friends Rob and Jody, with their boys Jordan and Tyler, all went to Little Shuswap Lake. It was in the first year or two of us owning a boat, and the three families had an amazing time together. We camped at the KOA on the way, spent our days on the water, watched our kids play, swim, try water sports for the first time. Our good friends Jeff and Brendan Eagle even stopped and visit us for a bit. Looking back, that trip has become deeply meaningful. It was likely the last time all three of our families were together like that. And I believe it may have been the last full family trip that Dean and Karen had with their kids before their marriage ended. When Dean and Karen divorced, it was far more difficult and devastating for Dean than most people ever knew. He struggled deeply with the loss and with often being alone. For weeks, if not a couple of months, he could not bear to stay at his house by himself, and he slept on our couch. He leaned on us heavily during that time, and of course, we were there for him. Dean always presented a strong exterior, but this season of his life revealed how much pain he carried internally, and how afraid he was of losing the people he loved. For many years, as I watched Dean stay in situations, even when he was not happy, whether it was work, relationships, or other parts of his life. What finally became clear to me is that Dean had a very real fear of abandonment. Losing his parents so young, the end of his marriage, and other people coming and going throughout his life all contributed to a deep fear of loss and change. It was not something he talked about openly, but because I knew him so well, I could see it in how he made decisions, even when better opportunities, or healthier choices were available. The idea of leaving something or someone often paralyzed him. Stability mattered to him more than most people realized. The one thing he never had to fear of losing was us. Outside of his kids and Dale, I believe our friendship was the most steady and stable thing in his life. Even in the seasons when we were not seeing each other as much, we always talked, always checked in, and always knew we would be there for one another. There was never a single doubt. The sense of permanence mattered to him more than he ever said out loud. I honestly do not know how to adjust to a world where he is no longer there for me when I need him. We had an annual stay at Ice Ranch in Lake Kootenai for about 16 years, and those became some of our most meaningful years of our family's lives. Dean and his kids, whenever they were able to come, spent countless days with us out there. It was one of the places where our families bonded the most, and where some of our best memories with Dean were made. We spent hours and hours on the lake, year after year, water skiing, wakeboarding, wake surfing, tubing, cliff jumping, cruising down the lake, or just floating and talking. Dean always had extra toys with him, motorbikes, quads, Sea-Doos, and he was always the one ripping around the boat, carving circles, creating waves, or letting the kids take turns riding the machines around them. Some of our kids' strongest childhood memories are from Kootenai. There were summers when we were out on the water from late morning until evening, with the kids rotating between being behind the boat, swimming off the back, or riding the Sea-Doos nearby. There were campfires that went late into the night, meals shared, and days when nothing mattered except for being together and enjoying the sun. Kootenai was where Dean could fully relax and just have fun. No pressure, no stress, just sunshine, water, adrenaline, and family. Looking back, those summers have become some of the most treasured memories with him. Dean also loved a good bath. It did not matter if it was drinking sour milk or driving a Sea-Doo for 10 minutes up and down the shore wearing nothing but a life jacket. He was always ready to accept a challenge. One of the best examples happened during a boys' weekend road trip out to Sickamoose. We stopped in Golden for gas, just a regular stop, until someone bet Dean $50 that he would not walk into the gas station wearing only his underwear and get the phone number from the girl at the till. Dean did not even blink. He stripped down to his bikini brief underwear, kept on his t-shirt and runners, and marched straight inside like he was running errands at home. He stood in a line of 4 or 5 people, and somehow no one noticed him. So Rob, being Rob, raised his voice so the entire store could hear and said, "Dean, are you in your underwear?" Everyone turned and stared at him. Dean did not react at all. No embarrassment, no apology, no flinch, just calm, confident Dean standing in his underwear in a gas station. When his turn came, he stepped up to the counter and said with a straight face, "Could you give me the phone number for the gas station here, please?" The girl gave it to him, he won the bet, and he walked out like nothing unusual had happened. That was Dean, fearless, quick-witted, unshakable, and always able to turn a ridiculous challenge into a win. Nothing rattled him, and honestly, we loved him for it. Dean was a natural teacher. He taught us all how to ride dirt bikes, quads, and sleds, me included. He would stand beside them or run behind them until they felt steady. He loved seeing their confidence grow. Dean also spent hours with our boys singing in the garage, helping us work on cars. So much of what we know today came from those times in the garage with him. He gave us the confidence to take things apart and fix them instead of being afraid to try. He was a great teacher to his family, his friends, and people he worked with. He was so passionate about the things he loved that people naturally picked things up from him just by being around him. My kids trusted him, they listened to him, they knew he loved them, And as they grew older, he was someone they could always go to it for advice, help, or encouragement. Dean's close friend, Chris McCready, recently shared how much he valued Dean's insight. Dean loved sharing what he knew, and Chris appreciated his instincts for RV values in the market. He was never formal coaching, but Dean was so passionate and knowledgeable that people naturally picked up things from him. Dean carried that same passion for anything with an engine or recreational into every part of his life. Whether it was a vehicle, watercraft, or RV, he understood it and loved it, and the people around him felt that. At times, Dean could be gruff, and he could have a quick temper, but he was fiercely loyal. He would always have your back. He was very protective of his family and of his close friends, and he would not want to be on the wrong side of it. He loved my kids fiercely and showed them lots of love and support. He was Uncle Dean to my kids. He would do anything for my family just like I would do anything for his. Dean always had a standing invitation for all of our family events: Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, birthdays, New Year's Eve fondues. He loved our spaghetti burgers on Christmas Eve, and he loved being part of our traditions. As his kids became adults, then married and having their own kids, he was blessed by spending more time with them during the holidays. While we missed him at our events, we were thrilled that he was with his family. Dean had a remarkable talent for finding great deals on vehicles and RVs, and an equal talent for selling them at a profit. Yet behind all that skill was a deep generosity. He frequently bought vehicles or RVs for his family so they could enjoy them. And his kids recently told me how he would upgrade their vehicles whenever he had the chance. His generosity showed up over and over again in the way he cared for them. Dean also loved to talk about his kids and grandkids. He lit up every time he mentioned them, and you could hear the pride in his voice whenever he shared what they were doing or how they were doing. Dean was my best and closest friend over all these years. My next closest friend was Rob Harlick. Rob passed away in July of this year, just a few months before Dean. Dean and I attended Rob's funeral together. It was incredibly difficult, but it also brought back many of those old connections from our younger years. It reminded us how important it is to stay connected with friends and not let those relationships slip away. Many of the friends who were grieving Rob are now here today, grieving Dean as well. Losing great people so close together makes it even harder, and it always makes that much clearer how important these relationships really are. Dean and I grew up in Christian homes, and even though there were times both of us drifted far away from God, the foundation that was built in our childhood and teen years never fully left us. He carried that belief deep down, even in the years when he was not living it out very closely. In the last year of his life, something shifted in him. He became more intentional, more aware of the impact of his words, and more focused on ensuring that nothing was left unresolved with people he loved. There were many times when he apologized to me for things I had not even noticed. Small moments where he felt he might have been short-tempered or impatient. He did not want to leave any hurt feelings behind. He wanted to make things right. He wanted his relationships to be strong. A big part of that was his desire to reconnect with his faith. Dean told me many times, "Please do not give up on me. Keep inviting me to church." And every time he could not make it, which was often because he was not sleeping well, he was often not feeling well, and mornings were incredibly hard for him, he would say, "I'm sorry I did not make it. Please invite me again." Even when his body was failing him, the desire was real. He came out to a men's breakfast at our church about a month before he passed. He genuinely enjoyed himself. We were some of the last to leave because he was connecting with people, listening, talking, and just enjoying being around others. Dean is now reunited with his parents. He's reunited with my mom, who became a second mom to him. He's reunited with Rob. Knowing that brings comfort in the middle of all this heartbreak. My hope and prayer that my hope and my prayer are that his children, their spouses, and his grandchildren have that same hope and peace in God. The kind of peace that Dean was reaching for in his final year. The kind of peace that gives strength in grief and the promise that we would see him again. As I come toward the close of my tribute, I want to share some words from my family, who loved Dean deeply. This is from Jill, my wife. Dean was a force to be reckoned with. He lived life to the fullest, and he never backed down. Not from a challenge, not from a dare, not from an opportunity to help, and not from the people he loved. He was the kind of person that dropped everything when a friend was in need. Whether it was solving that strange sound my car was making when Scott was out of town, scouring the neighborhood for my kid who had gone missing, showing up with a tool I didn't even know existed, or even making sure the bulk cooler was stocked with pickled beans to go in the Caesars. Dean added enthusiasm to every interaction and had a way of making every person feel like they were the most important person to him. I will always hold dear the memory of endless hours on the lake together, and will always wonder exactly how many pairs of Dean's sunglasses line the bottom of Lake Cuckoos. The memory of shared excitement and subsequent devouring of homemade potato salad straight out of the container, and the many meals, celebrations, and martini nights shared in our home, complete with pogo sticks, hula hoops, and hoverboards. I'm so grateful to know that Dean committed his life to the Lord many years ago. This is not the end of our friendship. Dean was one of a kind, and his passing leaves a hole that cannot be filled, except by the hope of resuming our friendship again in heaven. From Tannen. Tannen remembers fondly the one-on-one time he got to spend with his Uncle Dean when they went to the gym together almost every day for a couple of years. It was during these times that Dean provided guidance to all things working out, Tannen's sales career, and of course, girls. This is from McKenna. Some of my best memories are with Uncle Dean. He would be right there in the water with me, helping me learn how to water ski and cheering me on every time I tried. When I got older and my car battery died while my dad was away, he picked me up a new one and put it in so I would be okay. I always knew I could depend on him. I love the times we spent on the lake and family gatherings. One of my favorite moments was when we were playing pit. Everyone was shouting the number of cards that they were wanting to trade. And Uncle Dean started yelling, "Corn, corn, 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 corn," at the top of his lungs. It made us all laugh, and was such a perfect example of how much fun he brought into every room. This is from Connor. In our family, 10th birthdays were a big deal. For my 10th birthday, Uncle Dean wanted to make it special. He told me to start the night at his place and to bring our bathing suits. Me and my friends went over, enjoyed the hot tub, and had a water gun fight in the hot tub. Uncle Dean thought it would be fair to give us all tiny water guns while he was inside, hiding behind the window with a water gun 10 times the size. Afterwards, he took us for a ride in his Camaro, and we ended up doing donuts on the back road. It was a real memorable moment because it was the first time I'd ever done anything like that in a car. He always remembered my birthday every single year, and I could always expect to see him or receive a text from him. Uncle Dean had a way of making things special and memorable. We'd always go camping in the summers, and whenever he was there, it was always the highlight of the summer. He was always so much fun when he was there, and all the kids were thrilled to have him around. He'd let us take the Sea-Doo out with him, go on the quads, and he'd sneak us snacks. And our favorite of all was the chocolate milk. I didn't get to see him as much in the last 5 years, but I'm going to miss him deeply. Life won't be the same without him, and I'll never forget the times we had and how much I loved him. From Caden. In my early childhood, Uncle Dean was the one who always made everything feel fun and exciting. My favorite memories with him were when we'd go camping and he'd take me out on his quads and Sea-Doos and let me throw him off into the water. He'd also let me sneak over to his trailer to get an absurdly giant red Solo cup of chocolate milk that my parents surely wouldn't have approved of. This is the first that we've been hearing about. In my teenage years, Uncle Dean was extremely reliable and cared deeply for me. He showed this by always offering his skills, time, and resource, whether that meant lending his truck, helping me change my brakes or spending hours trying to get an old boat to run. So in closing, to me, Dean and I were brothers. We spent a lifetime together. We shared adventures, mistakes, laughter, and moments that shaped us. He was larger than life, fearless, loyal, gruff, caring, wild, tender-hearted, protective, and unforgettable. All those pieces made him who he was. And all of that makes this goodbye incredibly hard. But I am grateful beyond words for the years we had, for the memories we made, and for the hope that this is not the end.
Thank you, Scott. Definitely provided a different perspective than what many of us would have had of Dean. I've known Dean for many years, and I have my own memories of him. It has been great listening to the stories that have been shared by Scott, Tara Lynn, Austin, and Tyson to gain additional perspective of Dean and the great life that he led. Today we are here to celebrate his life. A man who didn't just live life, he floored it like his Camaro on an open highway. If you knew Dean, you knew two things. He loved adventure and he loved his family. And if you didn't know that, well, you probably never saw his Christmas shopping list, because apparently his kids had to tell him, stop buying for the grandkids. But I'm sure that Dean didn't see this as spoiling his grandkids, but seeing things that mom and dad probably would not buy. And that's the honor that you have as a grandparent. But let's be honest, days like today are hard. We feel the weight of loss because Dean mattered. He mattered to his children, his grandkids, his brother, his friends, and to everyone who ever shared a laugh or story with him. Grief is the price that we pay for love, and Dean loved deeply. So if you're feeling that ache today, it's okay. It means that you were a part of something special. Dean was fearless. He didn't just dip his toes into life. He dove in head first, probably wearing scuba gear. He loved sports cars, motorbikes, sledding, Sea-Doos, dirt bikes, you name it. If it had wheels or an engine, Dean was in it. And if it didn't, he probably figured out how to put one on it. Knowing this about Dean makes sense why his children chose to use a tailpipe to honor him today. So for those of you that don't know, this is actually the urn that they had made for Dean. Dean loved the sand and the sun, and he had a knack for finding adventure in Mexico, the Dominican, Costa Rica. But his favorite destination was anywhere that his family was. Dean's greatest joy wasn't horsepower. It was his kids and grandkids. Carolyn, Tyson, Austin, you were his pride and joy. And his 6 grandkids, they were the world. Christmas was kind of like his Super Bowl. He loved to spoil them so much that his kids had to stage an intervention. Dad, enough with the gifts. But that was Dean. His love language was giving, providing, and showing up. If Dean loved you, you knew it. He valued friendships and spending time with friends. We used to have an annual guys' weekend each summer down at Scott's place at Kukanisa Lake. And each summer it would be a group of guys getting together to hang out, to cliff jump, to hang out on the boat, and eat a lot of protein. I was the one who often looked after the menu, and the only rule that I had was limit the vegetables. Make sure there's lots of protein, limit the vegetables. One morning, before anyone had got up, myself and another guy decided to head out on the paddleboard. We were in the middle of the lake, just enjoying the peace and quiet. Then all of a sudden, I look towards the shore, and I see Dean running down the stairs from Scott's camper. He hops on the Sea-Doo, and he starts heading towards us. I looked at Mike and I said, "We're about to get wet." Dean got close, and he just started doing donuts around us until we fell off the paddleboards and into the water. As soon as we were soaked, he just left and headed right back to shore. He came out, he did what he came to do, and he was out of there. Dean loved to have a good laugh, and he aimed to keep things light. Dean didn't just tell you he loved you, he proved it. Sometimes that was through picking on you, or doing what he could to make you laugh. So where do we find comfort today? We find it in knowing that Dean's story doesn't end here. His laughter, his strength, his adventurous spirit, they live on in every memory we share. So when you hear the rumble of a Camaro, when you see a Christmas tree surrounded by gifts, when you feel the sun on your face, remember Dean. He's there in those moments. As we close today, remember this. Dean lived boldly, and he loved deeply. May we honor him by doing the same, by living with courage, by loving without reservation, and by cherishing the people who matter most. Though we say goodbye today, Dean's legacy of strength, devotion, and joy will always be with us. So on behalf of the family, we want to thank you for coming today to celebrate Dean's life. May peace and comfort surround this family, and may the memories of Dean bring light in the darkest days. So at this time, we're going to make our way out. I'm going to invite you all to stand. I'm going to lead the family out. They will be in the foyer, and they want to have a moment to visit with you. If you want to come up and check out the beautiful urn that they have prepared here and take a picture of it, it would be great. But we do want to thank you for coming today, and the family appreciates your love and your support. Would you please stand?